Thank you for joining us for today's Bible reading devotional. This weekend, we're starting a new series called What Makes Jesus Mad? And we're looking at those things that makes Jesus mad because that shows us what Jesus cares about. And this weekend, we're going to be seeing that Jesus gets mad when religious folk get in the way of people coming to him. So let's take a look at our passage. It comes out of Mark chapter 11. Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. But when he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations,' but you have made it a den of robbers." And so this weekend, Pastor Brett, he's going to talk about Jesus clearing the temple and what that means in terms of religious people getting in the way of people coming to know God. But there's a really interesting part in this passage. At the beginning, Mark tells us that Jesus curses a fig tree. And so Jesus is hungry. He sees a fig tree. It's got leaves on it, and he goes to see if there's any fruit. And there's not any fruit, and Jesus curses the fig tree, except it's not the season for figs. So that seems kind of unfair of Jesus to curse a fig tree for not having figs when it's not even time for the tree to have figs. But fig trees in the Middle East at this time, they actually had two fruits. So when they started to grow leaves, they would produce these little nodules that were really sweet and really delicious. We had a bunch of them. And so there's actually fruit that you could eat when it started producing leaves. And then later on, it would produce the actual figs. But if a tree wasn't producing those nodules, if the leaves came out, but the nodules didn't come, then it was a sign that there was something not right with that tree. Because if the tree wasn't producing the nodules, then it probably wouldn't produce figs either. And so it was a sign that the tree was sick, or that maybe it was even dead on the inside. And so that's what Jesus is cursing. And then we carry it to the clearing of the temple. And really what Jesus is passionate about, he wants to see fruit. The religious leaders, they were supposed to be bearing fruit of people coming in and getting to know God through the temple system, yet that fruit wasn't there. And so that's what makes Jesus mad, when there's no fruit, when people aren't allowed to come into God's presence. And so as we begin this series, maybe before we think about what makes Jesus super mad at other people, maybe we need to look at our own lives and wonder, is there any fruit? Are our lives bearing any fruit? Maybe you've been going to church your whole life, but there's not a whole lot of fruit. Maybe you say you want to follow Jesus, but you don't really care what he says about your life. Are you making a difference for God's kingdom in this world? Are you sharing love, grace, hope, and peace wherever you go, at work or at school? Are you bearing fruit in your family? Is your commitment to Jesus, is it making a difference with your family, with your spouse, with your kids? Are we bearing fruit? And this can be really challenging for me as a pastor, because my job is literally to do God's stuff all the time. But that's not necessarily fruitfulness. For me, the fruit is in my kids. For me, my fruit is in my marriage. And so is there actual fruit? Anything about it for my own life? And I encourage you to think about it for yourself as well. Are you bearing fruit? If you're committed to Jesus, is your life bearing fruit? Thank you so much for joining us today. See you real soon.